Greetings, and welcome to Our Real Truth with BeatZillaPDX Official. I am BeatZillaPDX, and you can follow this show on Anchor FM, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and also iTunes. So with that being said, thank you for spending this time with me. Once again, I am the host, BeatZillaPDX Official. And this episode of Our Real Truth, I'm calling it Great Expectations 2. So we're still dealing with the art of rap mazing. So I'll get right into it. So again, most people know I am in Portland, Oregon. So, you know, I talk about what's going on here in the city. And, you know, what's happened in the city has been national news. So, you know, we've had many protests since the whole situation with George Floyd kicked off. And, you know, they always, you would always hear in the media, the Black Lives Matter protests, it's Antifa, it's Black Lives Matter, they're destroying everything, why aren't the police coming out and doing anything, yada, 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 and whatnot. Well, now that Black Lives Matter is pretty much packed it in since Joe Biden has gotten elected, there's really not much to discuss there on that front, I guess, for them. So there is no protest really with concerning Black Lives Matter. So with that being said, now that you can no longer call it a Black Lives Matter protest, we are now just hearing it being a protest. So it's just now a protest. It doesn't have a name on it. They're not calling anyone out. Because what they were doing, a lot of since from the start of the protest all the way to the election, you know, they were always relating Black Lives Matter to Antifa. And of course, by no means am I involved with the organization of Black Lives Matter. That's not my bag at all. But with the sentiment of Black Lives Mattering and looking for justice and, you know, police accountability, you know, there has definitely been the outcry, and the defund the police talk has pretty much disappeared. And, you know, the name of Antifa has pretty much completely dropped out of the mouths of the live stream media. You know, as Queen Amadaya says, the lame stream media. You know, they have shifted the narrative, and it all really pretty much happened after January 6th, when you seen the Oath Keepers, Proud Boys, and other white nationalist groups storming the U.S. Capitol and committing a domestic terroristic act upon the U.S. Capitol. We will see when punishment time is. Because now you can hype up an arrest, you can hype up a charge, but how it plays out at the end is what really matters. So, before I go on, today, it looks like one of the civil rights leaders, Vernon Jordan, has passed away at age 85. So Vernon Jordan passing away today at age 85. Now, back to what I was saying. The protests that have been going on in Portland, Oregon are mainly against Biden's immigration bill, still police injustice, lack of police reform and accountability, and the defund the police talk has completely disappeared. It's out of the conversation. And so now we have police in our city and in our state trying to get more money. Subsequently, they defunded the only thing that really was majorly defunded, which was like the school police, which, considering the time we're in now, there aren't any kids in school anyway. So there should not be any reflection there as far as crime goes. And be clear, police don't solve, or they don't prevent crime. They investigate it. So we have a defunded, what do they call it? They call it a gun task force, which is formerly the gang task force. So, when you have gang task force in your city, typically that's going to be targeted towards who they like to identify as gang members or thugs, which is generally black people, especially foundational black Americans. So, with that being said, you have to look at how things play out. Because we've seen, say, if you, in movies to where people were looking to hold on to funding or get funding for a certain thing, they would maybe create an issue to be the ones to solve it. Kind of like Big Pharma, can cause an illness in a lab. Somehow it gets released into the air. And then they follow up with the treatment. Not a cure, but the treatment, which is now a revenue source. Making a problem happen. So the people bring you in and humble themselves while doing it. So basically, in this case, if the police were to, say, deal with their snitches, as we have seen in times past, and say, hey, just go start trouble over here. You and your guys go over here and make some trouble. It begs to say, okay, well, there's a lot of shootings that's been going on in Portland. When it started happening, they were first trying to tie it directly into gangs. And that wasn't necessarily the case. So now that more shootings are still occurring, they were just trying to have like a peace weekend deal here. I think it was called No Bullets Weekend or whatever. And before the sun went down Friday, there was a shooting on MLK. So, it's like the connection between the people who want to do like the keep the peace and positivity type deal. Usually those people are involved in the church. However, the people that are doing the shooting and all this crime are so far removed from that environment. So it's like kind of talking to the wind when you do things like that without involving the community. So really, more importantly than having rallies or anything like that, you need to go to where these people are at and just reach out to them. Or just make a call. But to no gang member or criminal could really care less about a rally saying, hey, we got to keep the peace and we got to stop shooting. We've been doing that since the 80s, self-destruction, and we're all in the same gang. Even the Bloods and Crips banging on wax. These things were peace treaties. I know a lot of the people doing the shooting now out here were probably not even born when all of these things happen. So, there's nothing new under the sun. But then again, you got to look at what happened. So in our state, we have something called Measure 11. Measure 11 is one of those mandatory minimum situations. And right now there is a campaign to get rid of it. And majority of the state's district attorneys are fighting for it. Now, recently, we have gotten a new district attorney in the city of Portland, which is for Multnomah County. That being said, he has a little different ideas. He's a lot more progressive, and that's kind of how he got in, is being progressive, changing the culture of how things go on. Because with even the police, this gun. The gun safety unit or whatever that got dismantled, their stop rate for stopping people in this city was at 85% black. When black folks make up less than 15% of the city, it makes no sense that you have such a high number. But it does make sense if the whole reasoning for the unit is to have a mask and say, we're looking at guns and we're looking at gangs. So subsequently, that means that we have to go to these black communities and these where we move these people out to these areas for Section 8, or how we have gentrified the city and moved them out. Well, back then, before the whole gentrification even happened, what they were doing was targeting all the black drivers. So going back from gang task force to fast forward to the gun safety unit, which is just gang task force, their targets have only always been black folk. And they have a horrible track record here. Horrible track record. There's still scandalous stuff coming out now about some of these police that were working here because, like we often say and often hear and been taught, that the police don't get fired, they get transferred. So they get jobs in other places, and they still hold these vendettas against people who probably were responsible for them losing their jobs where they were. Oh, so now right now with this spike in crime, we've had some protests that somehow the business owners were aware of. So I guess it was announced that they would be protesting Saturday night. So a lot of in what we have here called the Pearl District. So there were a lot of people that went over there, I guess. The business owners over there, they started boarding up their businesses to kind of prepare. And they knew what it was. And so I said all that to say that there is a big ball of chaos building and brewing behind the defunding of the police. And they're basically what they want to do is try to blame black folks. So to do that, you have to stop saying Antifa, because everybody knows when you say Antifa, that's not referring to black people. That's referring to white people. So now they're not labeling the protesters at all. They're not labeling the protests. They're just saying these are protests and for police brutality and racism and Biden's immigration policies, which that's also pretty interesting right there. So with all the shootings going on, the police came out and said, well, we were not able to respond to the property damage because of all the shootings that were going on this weekend. So if we had more money to investigate our gun and get our gun safety task force back, then that could go ahead and start answering the call for all of these shootings, and then these people could be back downtown protecting your property. So they're selling that line. Now, again, it doesn't make any sense to think that, oh man, criminals were just waiting for a gun safety task force to be defunded to start doing criminal activity. That has got to be ridiculous. I mean, that's one of the most ridiculous ideas. But this is the line that they are pushing here. And see, this is what goes on when you have media as a tool. You can push stupid agendas through. And this is stupid. Because for me, I look at it like there is no way that a bunch of criminals said, we're going to start a gang war as soon as we can get some police defunded. Where's the benefit of that? We're talking about reparations and justice and police accountability, but somehow we did all of that just to turn around and shoot each other. Well, that line has quickly went out of the window because not all of these people that are committing these crimes and all of these shootings are even black people. So there's that. That's a little bit of an issue. We have a shooting that was just at a strip club the other day. And what they're doing is basically saying, well, yeah, just like, for instance, we're at this strip club and we're investigating this murder. This is why we can't come by your business. Well, I think that would be in anywhere that a murder would and a shooting would definitely take priority. But this is just a tool to make it look like something is spiking. And granted, yes, the shootings are spiking. And the protests have continued here, but the response of the people are completely different. See, when it was Black Lives Matter, and you could say Black Lives Matter, everybody wanted to make it about race, and it was about police brutality. Now that it's about police brutality, and it's white people saying it, no one has the same energy. I mean, just being here, you could go on some of these comment boards and see how some of these people get down out here. And they will really, really tell you how they really feel and not hold anything back. So, you have the people who would come on these comment boards who I could label as the Midnight Torch Bearer Brigade. Because they were screaming bloody murder and demanding the police just start blasting on protesters. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, for the sake of property damage. So it just goes to show the level of subtle evil that we are living next door to every day. These type of people, like, they'll sit up here and say, oh man, you guys gotta do something. You gotta lock these people up. You gotta get out there and crack some heads. Fill them with tear gas. You're not hearing the same cries for that right now. They're just saying, we want the police to do something. Well, it ain't black folks out there. Well, we just want the police to do something. Before, they had every idea in the book about what should be happening to the Black Lives Matter people and anybody that wanted to get out there to support justice for black folk. Oh man, they were ready to shoot tear gas and everything. And if you've noticed, there hasn't been a strong resistance from law enforcement here either. Now, this is something that they knew they were going to do. They arrested a few people, but I mean, there was no real major incidents. So, again, just notice how Antifa is not mentioned anymore. We don't even hear much about much about their whereabouts or what even is going on with them, except for there is a little story right now kind of talking about debunking the fact that they were part of the Washington Capitol. And if you notice, if there were things that you posted that showed Antifa members in the Capitol riots, you were getting fact-checked or flagged for that. Because I know I did. And, they had to... I've been going through a lot of stuff with Facebook. That's a show for another day. But just seeing how they were so much about law and order when it was Black Lives Matter. But now being that they're all white, the call for law and order has came to a screeching halt. And it's just say, hey, do something, law enforcement, whatever that something is. So that, I don't know if that's like, well, make a deal with them, give them what they want. Because what I'm not hearing and what I'm not reading is arrest them, lock them up. You should just go out there. If they don't comply, shoot them. I'm not reading that same response anymore on the same platforms. Imagine that. Now, we should not be surprised, because even Joe Biden understand image is everything. So they have to protect an image. And like I've done a previous show about that. If you watch my YouTube channel, I've also mentioned that and on this podcast about the January 6th, about how the image of white male superiority took a major hit. And it definitely did. And it's still doing that. So, I mean, you have to look at, you got to look at how things are playing out with that image. And every turn they're trying to flip it to make black people the face of something. So even with these attacks on Asian people, these random attacks, which, they're saying spike, but I haven't seen a over, like when they say spike, I mean, we could go through a summer of black people getting murdered by the police, and that doesn't seem to be called or referred to as a spike. So I need to see those type of numbers to call it that. Now, I can say it probably happens. The interesting thing that I looked up while searching this, though, majority of the people who were attacking Asians are white. Not black people. So while they were trying to push this narrative that black folks somehow were looking at Asians, be clear, foundational black Americans are looking for reparations. I don't think there is anything about reparations that would involve Asian people or jumping on them. If anything, with the black community and the Asian community, it to be addressed is the boycott of the Asian community not circulating their dollar amongst the black community. Now that's a conversation to be had. But, who wants to do that? So, and back to what's going on here. They're looking at, in my opinion, and this is just my speculation, and I just look at how things are working. I think this wave of shooting and wave of protests and other random criminal acts, I believe that those are playing into the agenda of what the police want and what our state's district attorneys want. And mostly because when you start moving into this progressive manner, somebody's going to start looking at some and having some questions about some things that were previously done, especially when it comes down to this Measure 11. Because just being here in Portland's rate of conviction is over 90%, I believe. I want to say it's a 93%. And, again, with a high percentage, I think that's 85% black and conviction rate of black folks here in this city. So, and that just comes from, the king of Measure 11, Rod Underhill, who was the former DA of Multnomah County. And so our new Multnomah County District Attorney, who is Mike Schmidt, is doing things a lot different and trying to change the manner of the way things were done. Because truth be told, let's just be clear. This is racial targeting by a fully functional justice system. So that means from the police to the DA to the public defenders. Probably the judges are the least in this mix in Multnomah County because and they see raw deals. Now, what I will say, more judges should have stepped in to stop a lot of these raw deals, and they didn't. So we do have a few that will, but not many. So with that, there's a very shady past within the whole reason for a protest and the need for the protest here. They just recently settled with Quantas Hayes' family over a wrongful death to which no police were charged. And this just happened in 2017. So don't get it twisted. This stuff is happening and nobody comes out for us. And we need to start thinking more on where we circulate our dollars, because everybody does pay attention to where they don't circulate their dollars when it comes to us. So that's just something to keep in mind. Your taxes go to pay for these people's performances of evil up on your community. So you got to make sure that you know who these people are in your local area. Know who your DAs are. Know who your judges and commissioners are. Know their records. Know who your state representatives are. Know who your area in the zones that you live in, if your city is made up like that. If you have aldermen, go know who these people are and understand what they're supposed to be doing. So, with all the shady past, one can speculate one thing or the other, but one thing is for certain. All of these shootings can't be random gangs or domestic violence, but some of them definitely, I feel, are being done or committed with an agenda of financial interest by, my speculation, some people who may wear uniforms and badges. But, who can say? That's just speculation. And with that being said, this has been Our Real Truth with BeatZillaPDX Official. And this show, again, can also be found on Anchor FM, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iTunes. You can follow me at Instagram. Follow me on Instagram at BeatZillaPDX. You can follow me on Twitter at BeatZillaPDX. And you can follow me at Facebook at BeatZillaPDX. And on YouTube at BeatZillaPDX Official. And if you need to get in contact with me, you can email me at ourrealtruth@gmail.com. That's ourrealtruth@gmail.com. And if you want to make a donation to the program, to the platforms, you can do so at CashApp, $BeatZillaPDX. That's CashApp at $BeatZillaPDX. And with that being said, This has been another episode of Our Real Truth. Great Expectations, Episode 2, The Art of Rap Mazing. And rap mazing, once again, being things that they can throw at you like firecrackers at your feet to get you to move to or fro by throwing so much of what you didn't expect at you at one time. So, just stay focused and stay aware, stay vigilant, and stay safe. And with that, Babylon is fallen. Babylon is fallen. Let it fall and let us rise. With that being said, y'all, BeatZillaPDX official. I'm gone. Peace.